Hey y'all, it's Katie. Welcome back to From My Vanity and welcome to another 3 Looks 1 Palette Plus review of the September Rose Cosmetics Slush palette. Now this is not a new palette, but it is a palette that I have had my eyes on for so long, and I took a few polls on my Instagram and on my YouTube channel and I was like, hey, is there any interest in seeing 3 looks with this? I know it's been out for like forever, I feel like, but would you at all be interested in a 3 Looks 1 Palette Plus review? Because I was basically trying to come up with a good excuse to buy it, even though it's not exactly new. And I got overwhelmingly positive responses saying, yeah, it's not a new release, but I would still love to see a review and looks with it. So that is what we're doing today. And yeah, I was excited that I finally got to buy it. Like I said, it's been on my want to try list for forever. Now before I show you this, I have to explain that I got it brand new and I had put it up here to use, and then one day my daughter wanted to do like face paints, and the way I do it is I have this like white cream product. It's kind of like a white concealer, and I'll usually use it to outline and kind of get a base for, like, I usually do a butterfly or a horse or something on her face, and then I'll take eyeshadow and tap it over the white to get the color and dimension. That's how I do her face painting, because it's everything I had on hand. Anyway, a couple weeks ago, her aunts were over and wanting to do the same, and they wanted to do it on each other, so I was like, you know what, go get a eyeshadow palette in my room, you know, something colorful, and you guys can do it. And she chose this palette, and then whenever you do one thing once with my daughter, she thinks it's now a habit, and so it's hard to kind of pull back. Anyway, it ended up going on for a couple days where she kept going back for this palette, so it looks well loved. I cleaned it up as best I could. I tried to get all the colors that she kind of, not mixed together, but the powder got into each other. Like you can see a little pink around here and stuff like that, but I tried to clean it up the best I could, but that's why it looks a little rough. I'm not usually this rough on my cosmetics, but my daughter is, and honestly, like, it doesn't bother me that this now looks kind of dirty and beat up. I think it just shows that it has been well loved and well used, and I love that my daughter has that very artistic, creative side, so I am totally all for that. I ended up giving her another older, colorful palette to use, and she's going hard on that one, so I could have this one back to review. So anyway, I just want to explain that when you guys see it, I didn't do that to it, and I'm pretty messy with my eyeshadows, but I'm not this messy. So anyway, yeah, today we're going to be doing my tutorials, and per usual, as I go through my tutorial, I'm going to be giving you guys my reviews and my thoughts on the individual shadows that I use, and then at the end I'll give you kind of my overall thoughts and opinions on this palette and the September Rose brand. Now, I can't say too much about the brand, but this is my first product from them, but we can just talk at the end my overall thoughts and anything that I didn't cover during the tutorial. So let's jump right into it.
Alright, to start off the first look, I'm using the Gerard Cosmetics Clean Canvas Eye Base as my eyeshadow base and primer. And then I am jumping into the Slush palette from September Rose Cosmetics, and I'm going into that orange shade there called Orange Soda. And I'm first kind of pressing that into my crease and then just going and gently buffing and blending that in. And as you can see, it's a very nice and pigmented shadows. I had no issues building it up. The first initial pass or two I felt like was a little sheer, well, not sheer, but just a little dull. But once I went back over it with a little bit more color, I feel like it brightened right back up, and I really liked how it looked. Next up, with that dark cherry, I'm using that into the crease to just deepen it up and get more dimension there. And as you can see, I feel like it did a really good job. It didn't overwhelm the orange, but it definitely did give me the depth that I wanted. It was a little bit thin, like it took a little bit of work to build up, but honestly nothing surprising considering I'm putting it on top of another color. And overall, like when I was finished blending, I was very happy with how it blended out and how easy it was to get that blend. Then I took Black Currant, that deepest purple, and I'm placing that right into the crease just to add a little bit more depth to it because it wasn't quite as intense as I was going for. I want to do a half cut crease here, so I really wanted to make the crease shade really deep and give it some depth to it from what would be peeking out over the cut crease. So anyway, I'm using that just to add a little bit more and then packing it on the outer corner and just taking some time to mesh and blend all those shades together. The Black Currant shade is really pretty. I would say if anything, it's not as deep of a purple as I was expecting just by looking at it in the pan, but it definitely is still pigmented. It did build up nicely. I didn't see any issues with patching, which can be a problem when it comes to purples, so I was very pleased overall with this purple. Then taking my Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Concealer in the white shade, I'm using that to cut my crease in this little fan brush, which I use this because I was running out of all my other flat brushes, and per usual I just tap out the edge there just to help blend and diffuse everything so there's not a harsh line there. And then taking bubblegum, I'm going to be placing that mainly on the inner half, but then also focusing it above. I will say that this shade specifically isn't my favorite for doing this. Like, I really enjoyed it as a inner corner highlight to make a color pop and really give some light to it, but as a color, it didn't give me the intensity that I wanted. It wasn't as smooth. It wasn't really like a shadow. It kind of almost felt like a topper shade, so it wasn't my favorite to use on my lid, but as an inner corner highlight, as you'll see later on, I really do like it. And then I'm taking Berry Blast and I'm putting that on the main lid area. And this shade is really pretty, as you can see. It's a lot lighter than it appears when you look at it in the pan. But for me, I was totally fine with that. I was happy to see that it brought a lot of light to this look and didn't, make it too deep and dark. And it was very nicely pigmented. It is more of a firmly pressed shimmer. I feel like all of them in the palette are. They still go on very smoothly. And while it takes a little bit of extra work to kind of get it from a brush to your lid, you could use your finger and get it done faster. But even with a brush, you can still get it there. And I was really happy with how that turned out. Then taking the banana shade, because I just had to have a little banana in there. As you can see, I thought it totally popped very easily on its own, took no work to build up, and I can definitely see that I put the yellow there. Then going on with my Vamp stamp, I'm plopping that down and taking this Butter London liquid liner and going to wing it out. And then I also followed that up with mascara and then this Milani Stay Put eyeliner in the shade Dutchess to put into my waterline. And then I'm taking that black currant shade and I'm smoking that right on the lower lash line. Again, no issues with this shade. If anything, I kind of was annoyed that the shade was called black currant and it wasn't really, I wouldn't really say there's a whole lot of black in here. It's mainly just like a more smoky type of purple. It's still pretty regardless, but just a little pet peeve. Dipping back into orange soda, I'm using this to just buff out and diffuse the purple and really bring some orange to the inner half of my lower lash line. And once again, really like how this built up. I thought it was really easy to show up, and it really, even though it's just such a small area that I'm putting it on, I felt like the neonness of that orange really pops out, and I like that. And then once I like how that looks, I'm just putting on some mascara. And then I'm using Coconut Milk for my inner corner highlight. As you can see, it's more of a white shade with, I would say, more of a satiny finish, but it still is really pretty. And when I do pack it on there, I feel like it does bring a lot of light to my inner corner. It's just not anything out of this world, I'll put it that way. Taking my Urban Decay Heavy Metal Glitter Liner in the shade Punk Rock. I think this might be a limited edition one, but anyway, I'm cutting my crease because I just felt like doing it that day and I thought it looked pretty. And then I'm taking my Amrezy highlighter and applying that as my highlight of the day. For this day, I decided to just use this Butter London Glazen Lip Glaze. I'll have it linked down below, the shade that I use, because I can't remember off the top of my head. But I'm just putting that all over, and that is going to be the completed look. Overall, I just felt like the look in general just looks very flawless and seamless. There's still that pop of bright color, but the purples are just very effortless and beautiful. And that gradient from the really light color into the purple, I thought was very nice and smooth. There's no really rough lines. Another thing to note with this look is there was a little bit of transfer up into my crease, but I didn't use the glitter glue that day, and honestly the transfer wasn't that crazy, which always impresses me. And then the mattes, of course, I thought they were beautifully. They're very pigmented and they showed up very nicely, didn't take any work, and I didn't have any issues with patching, which I was very happy to see. Moving on into my second look, I'm using the LORAC Behind the Scenes Eyeshadow Primer and the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Concealer for my base. And then I'm also taking inspiration from this picture, which I will leave linked down below. But diving right in, I'm taking the shade Blue Hawaiian, and I am kind of stamping that just a little bit into the inner half of my crease. And then once the color is kind of down, because I am going on a tacky base, I don't want any issues with skipping. So once I have some color put down, then I start to build it up and just sweep it out and, diffuse the edges and really build up the color. And once again, I didn't see any issues with patchiness, and it built up very nicely and blended out beautifully. I decided to dip into dark cherry for the rest of my crease area, the outer half of it. And again, it went on very smoothly. I didn't have too many issues. I stamped it just like I did the other color first initially, and then I blended it. And those two shades I thought blended together very nicely. It was pretty effortless to get the two to really mesh and create an ombre from the blue into the purple. And yeah, I was really happy with how this look was starting to turn out. And then for the next shades, I dipped into both Blue Raspberry and Black Currant because I really wanted to get the depth that I saw in that photo that I was using for my inspiration. And with just the Black Currant, as I said, it's not really that dark. So I kind of went back and forth. I think I started with the purple and then kind of added the blue on top. And as you can see, it's really given a lot of depth. And while I am mixing those colors and I'm doing a lot of packing on and blending out, I didn't have any issues with patchiness, which I was very impressed with once again because I feel like purples are so tricky. Like you can just make them matte and then they just patch up and look terrible. But these two colors were very easy to work with. Going into Sour Apple, I know this was a bit of a gamble because it is a green next to a purple, but there was just this bit of dark green that I saw in the inspiration photo that I really wanted to have, and because of what I was going to put on the lid, I wanted to have that there already. So I very carefully went into the shade and just tapped it on there right where the cut crease was going to happen and where it would end. So I went in to do my cut crease, and I used the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Concealer in white, and I cut out my crease and tapped out the edge just as I did before. But continuing on, I'm taking the shade Lemon and Limes and I'm packing that on the kind of outer half of my cut crease. And I'm just packing that in. And something to note is that when you use a matte on a cut crease, it can go wrong very quickly if it's not like a good concealer and a good eyeshadow. And I know this concealer, it always works well, so it always depends on the eyeshadow whether doing an all matte cut crease like this will work. And overall, I was very happy with it. As you can see, it's very pigmented, it builds up beautifully, and yeah, overall, I was just very pleased with how it was looking. So then for the inner part, I'm taking Coconut Milk because, like I said, it's more of a shimmer shade. I wanted to use that on the inner half. If I had an all matte white shade, I would have used it. But like I said, this is more of a satiny shade. It's not really anything I would say shimmery, so it worked out just fine to pack right into the inner part of that cut crease and just really brighten it up. And then going back into Sour Apple, I'm just tapping that right back where I had put it before, but this time really focusing on meshing that green into the purple just to make it as seamless a transition as I can. And then also too, I'm going back into the two deepest shades that I had put on my outer corner originally and tapping them back on. Taking my Vamp stamp, I'm just putting on some wings, and then once I have those down, I'm winging it out with this Viciley liner. I've already got a review on my YouTube channel with this. I'll leave it linked up here, but and I put their mascara down, and then I'm taking this sleek black gel liner, and I'm putting that into my waterline. Taking the same blue and purple that I used in the outer corner, I am smudging that right against where I put that black down, trying to keep pretty tight to my lash line, not really dragging that dark color down too far. And then I'm going to take the first shade that we ever started with, Blue Hawaiian, and I'm going to be placing that on the inner half and then smudging it kind of into that purple blue shade that I put down. And as you can see with the blue, since I am putting this on top of like a set powder, because I have put concealer down, but I always set my under eyes with powder, it does take a little more work to build up and really get the blue to show up than it did in my crease when I had a tacky base. But overall, I still feel like while it took a little bit more work, it wasn't that much, and I did get the blue that I was wanting. And then I'm just kind of taking a bigger brush and blending it all together just to make sure it looks good, and then putting on some mascara. For my inner corner highlight, I'm going to go in with Bubblegum, and I just had to leave this blooper in, so enjoy me not realizing that I was pointing at the camera and not my brush, but I decided to wet it because I really wanted it to pop, and from my past experience using it, it was so just kind of flaky and hard to work with that I wanted it to be wet to really, one, pop, but also be easier to apply. And wetting it really did give me what I was looking for. It's a very pretty highlight. It was much easier to apply down. It wasn't so flaky and sheer. Going into my Anastasia Beverly Hills Amrezy highlighter, I'm putting that on for my highlight of the day. And then taking this Lucky Chick lip lacquer in the shade Blissful, I'm using that on my lips. And then once that's on, last of all, I'm taking those lashes and trying my best to apply them. This is the look I wore when I did my review video. So if you go watch that video, you're going to see this look in there. But yeah, this is going to be the completed look. Overall, I really like how it turned out. I just love this mix of colors. Like I said, it's a very interesting mix of colors, and you would think you would have so many issues blending it because they're so unique and colors you don't often see mixed together, but overall, I thought everything blended out beautifully, and I was very happy with how the outer corner, the depth that I was able to get with mixing the blue and the purple together. And yeah, this eye look wore beautifully because it's mostly mattes except for that inner corner part. I didn't have any issues with transfer or creasing, and overall, just very happy with this look. For my third and final look, I'm taking the Covergirl Lid Lock Up for my primer, and then I'm taking the Makeup Revolution Cut Crease Canvas and using that as my base. Then going into Banana because I had so much fun with that shade. I'm first kind of tapping it down as I've been doing when I initially start. I feel like that helps the pigment really pop, but I'm just taking the big fluffy brush, packing it down, and then once I've kind of set it with the powder, then I start to blend it out and really get it all diffused up in there. And as you can see, I think it's very nice and vibrant, and really no issues with building it up, no issues with applying it. It's a beautiful shadow. Going into Cucumber Lime, I'm going to be placing that on my outer corner and just packing that up and kind of blending it out. I really wanted to get a green that was very diffused on the outer corner. I didn't want it to be too structured, so once I kind of pack it on there and get the base set, then I really started to just blend it out and buff it out. And as you can see, I thought it looked really nice. It didn't take too much work to build up, and then when I started to blend it out and mesh it with the yellow, it performed beautifully, and I really liked the overall look and how easy it was to get that. Taking my NYX glitter glue, I'm just applying this with my finger in preparations for the shimmer that I'm going to be putting on. And for this shimmer, I took Mango from the palette and used that on a flat brush and just applied that. I wasn't really going for a really structured cut crease, but I did kind of cut it out with my brush. And this was a shadow, I feel like when you look at it, you'd almost think it'd be better paired with like pinks and stuff like that. But putting it with this yellow and green, I thought the orange in it just really popped out. Like I said already with their shimmers, they're a tiny bit more firmly pressed. Honestly, not that bad. They're not super metallic-y, but they're a very beautiful shimmer. And I love how easy they are to use and just how effortlessly they go on and how very pretty they are. Like I said, they're not intense metallic, but they definitely have the shine and the reflectiveness that I want when I reach for a shimmer. Then going into my Maybelline Fit Me powder, I'm just going to use that to kind of offset that white from my primer just to make it not look too weird and bring it kind of back to my natural skin tone color and to set that right below my brow bone. And then taking my Vamp stamp and this Physicians Formula liquid liner in the brown shade, I am putting on my wings per usual. Once that was on, I used this Benefit Bad Gal Bang Mascara, and then I followed that up with this yellow ColourPop gel liner. I'll have it linked down below. I don't remember the color off the top of my head, sorry. And then I'm going to go back into that green that we used already, the Cucumber Lime, and I'm going to be smudging that out on my lower lash line. I'm focusing it mainly on the outer half. I'm not really bringing it too far in. And then once I've got that smudged out, I'm going into the lighter green, that lemon and lime. And I am taking a much bigger brush, as you can see, and just spending some time to both apply it on my inner half, but also just to diffuse and blow out that green that I put on the outer half and just connect the whole eye look as a whole all the way around. And then I did dip back into Banana just a little bit to help blend out and buff out the outer corner. I like to call this like Betty Jeaning it because I feel like anytime Butte Bean or Betty Jean does a look, the way her eyeshadows like stop, the blend is just very effortless. And that's something I've been trying to work on. So anyway, just took a little bit more of that yellow and tried to do that. And then I'm just ending the look with some mascara. And then reaching into my Kristen Lee Glimmer Gels, I'm taking the shade Typical and I'm using that as my inner corner highlight. As you can see, it is stunning and so intense. And then for my face highlight, I'm using the Lethal Cosmetics highlighter in Isotope and getting that glow pretty much instantaneous. And then for my lips that day, I'm just taking the Butter London lip oil in the shade Dusty Mauve and putting that on my lips, and that is going to be the completed look. Overall, this look was just a lot of fun and I love the mix of colors that I got. Wear time on this was absolutely beautiful. There was minimal to almost no transfer up into my crease because I used that glitter glue, so I really like the formula of their shimmers. Yes, they might not be as intense and sparkly as some metallic shadows can be, but I absolutely love that wherever I put them, I know they're not going to travel up into my crease all that much, so I really like that aspect of it. And like I said, I think they're still really shiny and reflective and beautiful. But yeah, this is going to be the third and final look, and I honestly can't tell you which one of these looks was my favorite, and they were also just so easy to do as well and so much fun to put the colors together. So you'll have to let me know down below in the comments which look was your favorite.
Alright, so those are the three looks. This was the last one, as you guys saw, and this one's a really fun one. So let's talk a little bit more about this palette. As you guys heard, overall, I really like this palette. I think it's great quality. It's very nice. I will say when I first got it, it smelled heavily of chemicals. Now I really don't notice it, but it's one of those type of palettes where when you first open it, it's just like, wow, I can smell that. But as I said, now that it's been open a while, I've been using it and whatnot, it doesn't smell at all. I love the array of colors in here. I think the only thing that I wish it had that would make it complete for me, and I'm not saying this is a negative, but I feel like there's always something in a palette that could be tweaked to perfect it for you personally. And I know that that's just for me. Someone else might think this is perfect or want something else different. But I feel like if this had a black in it, it would be perfection, because when I did that one look, the second look I think it was, with the really dark outer corner, I had to combine these two, and I got a pretty dark color going back and forth and building these two shades up, the blue and the purple, to really get that depth and that dimension, because by itself, while these colors are dark, they're very much you know, blue and purple, and I wanted something more, not brown, but I just wanted black. Like if I had a black, I would have just used that, and it wouldn't have taken as much kind of back and forth and mixing and really deepening it up with this kind of corner here. I really like how heavily this palette leans on the mattes. You guys know, especially when it comes to color, I really like to be able to work with a lot of mattes. I'm not someone who just wants to put a shimmery like color on my lid and then neutral everywhere else. I really like to play with mattes up in my crease and do all matte looks that are really colorful. So I like that for this palette. There are only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one's kind of, and that's the thing too. It's like this one, it's not a matte, but it's not exactly a shimmer. It's definitely satin color, so I don't know if you would even count that. But for true metallic shimmer formulas, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one again is more of that just satiny tone. They're very, very beautiful. I'm just kind of pointing that out, that they're not true mattes, but they're not exactly what I call a shimmer. But besides those shades, everything else is mattes, and I really like that. I love the pops of color they have. I mean, the whole palette's colorful, but you know, that pop of like neon orange just stands out to me. This blue is super pretty, and I didn't use it in any of the 3 looks that I recorded for this video. And overall, like I've already kind of covered, the blending of these shadows is very easy and nice. The pigmentation is very nice. It's nothing super intense like I would say like Menagerie Cosmetics or even Give Me Glow. Sometimes their formula and their shadows can be just so intenseful that you kind of have to go in with a light hand. I didn't really have to like dig into this kind of like I do with Coastal Scents, but I definitely, you know, took a little back and forth to build it up. It's very nicely pigmented and very easy to work with, and if you're someone who's wanting to, maybe you're newer into eyeshadow but you want to explore color, I feel like this is a great palette you could get because the formula is very easy to work with and you have so much color to work with. It's kind of like a one and done. So yeah, I'm really happy with my palette. I definitely think it's great quality. I can understand why people like it, and I like just having a really staple rainbow palette to go to get an array of different colors, because while I have a lot of colorful palettes in my collection, I was thinking about like true rainbow where there's every color of the rainbow to some extent in here, and I think this is the only one I have. I'm trying to think of another palette that has every color of the rainbow in it, and I have a lot of colorful palettes like I said. Maybe the Makeup Revolution Birds of Paradise and Reloaded Euphoria, that has a lot of colors, but I don't have a ton with all the colors. I have just a lot of palettes with a lot of colorful, but they tend to stick to a theme on one side or other of the rainbow, if that makes sense. So I really do like having this and now in my collection to be able to reach for when I need an array of colors from the rainbow. I feel like this is a good one and done. Yeah, that's gonna do it for my review and 3 looks at 1 palette with the September Rose Slush palette. I hope you guys found it informative, even though, like I said, this isn't a new release, but it's a palette I've been eyeing for so long, and I'm glad to finally been able to try it. So I hope that even though maybe my review wasn't too helpful, like you've already heard it so many times before, maybe my 3 looks that I created are a little more unique than what's out there, and you can get some inspiration from it. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this review video. I hope you guys enjoyed it as always, and if you did enjoy it or if you found it helpful, whatever the case may be, please hit the thumbs up button on your way out. It really does help me out in the whole YouTube algorithm. And thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to check out another one of my videos. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.